The movie starts with a sheriff reaching a gruesome crime scene in rural Texas in 1979. There is a dead body hidden in the front of the house with blood splattered on the front porch. Upon entering the house, the sheriff discovers 2 additional bodies near the front door, with a fundamentalist Christian preacher's speech playing on the television. Shortly after, the deputy directs his focus to witness something especially horrifying. The sheriff is left stunned as they head to the basement. The next scene flashes back to the day before, showing an aspiring actress named Maxine leaving with her boyfriend, an executive producer. Among them are the rest of the crew, the director, the sound operator known as Church Mouse, who is also the director's girlfriend, and the lead actor and actress, Playboy and Blonde. They head to Houston to film a porno called The Farmer's Daughter. The crew is about to reach a farmhouse location for filming the movie. The producer approaches the elderly owner, a war veteran named Landlord, who welcomes him with a rifle in hand. The producer gently reminds the landlord about their agreement to rent his place from the previous night. Landlord sets down his shotgun and explains that he uses it to frighten trespassers, but it's not armed. As Maxine leaves the van, she sees the landlord's wife, Pearl, observing her from the window. The landlord then brings the crew to his boarding house. The landlord blatantly shows his dislike or distrust towards all of them.
I don't much like the looks of none of y'all.
For one lifetime.
The shooting will begin shortly with Playboy and Blonde engaging in a passionate hormone exchange. At the same time, Maxine, wearing just a jumper, goes outside for a smoke and stumbles upon a lake near the boarding house. Unaware of Pearl's presence, she swims in the tranquil surroundings, while Pearl secretly watches her swim nude from a distance. Conversely, the producer and director are in disagreement as the director aims to create an adult film showcasing the actor's passion. Nevertheless, the producer highlights that audiences eagerly anticipate such movies, so he will keep doing what he does, and success will follow shortly. Church Mouse silently observes Playboy and Blonde arguing over who is the superior actor. Returning to Maxine, she relishes the tranquility while floating, oblivious to the fact that a dangerous alligator lurks in the water, ready to seize her prized oyster. After some time, she leisurely swims back to the dock, unaware that the alligator is now trailing behind her. Maxine unknowingly avoids her death as the animal comes within a meter before she steps onto the dock. Conversely, Playboy and Blonde film the movie's concept, featuring his car breaking down and him finding Blonde's house. Playboy requests to use a phone to seek assistance, but Blonde informs him that they lack a telephone. She then offers him to come inside and wait for her daddy, who may give him a lift to town. Maxine heads back to the boarding house and sees Pearl waving at her from the front porch. Despite her confusion, Maxine enters their house. Pearl offers her a glass of lemonade in the kitchen. Once Maxine finishes her drink, she excuses herself and Pearl accompanies her. Right now, Blonde enticingly goes up to Playboy and tells him to come with her before her dad comes back. In the upcoming scene, Playboy and Blonde are seen wrestling on the bed. At the same time, Maxine gazes at the wall photos while Pearl recounts how her husband made it through the war and his unwavering devotion to her at that time. Once a dancer, she had to give it up when the war started. Pearl then tells Maxine to reluctantly look at her beautiful face in the mirror. Yet, she promptly moves away from Pearl when she feels her hands on her body. At that moment, the landlord shows up in his car. Pearl promptly orders her to go and assures her that what happened will remain between them. Maxine leaves the house and hurries back to the boarding house as Landlord comes in through a different entrance. Swiftly, she retreats into a room, gazing at her reflection, affirming that she will not settle for an undeserving life. The landlord discovers 2 glasses of lemonade and quickly infers that Pearl had a guest. The crew returns to the barn and films the following scene, featuring Maxine as Blonde's younger sister. Playboy informs her about his car and the urgent need for their daddy's arrival before nightfall. Maxine advises against bothering their daddy and recommends giving Playboy a ride instead. In the upcoming scene, Maxine is heard moaning while grinding on top of Playboy. Without the crew's knowledge, Pearl is outside, feeling excited as she watches the scene through the window. Pearl goes home after watching them and asks her husband to kiss her. He refuses because his heart is not strong enough to handle the speed and power. Blonde praised Maxine for her acting later that night. She mentions that she understands the reason behind the producer leaving his wife for Maxine. Church Mouse suggests the idea of observing each other's partners with other individuals. The producer replied, saying it's only for the camera as long as it's rolling. Despite that, they still desire to remain with their partners. The rest of the team chimes in, suggesting that it's not healthy to keep arousal to oneself. Everybody enjoys this mission, knowing that one day they will be too old to engage in it. Churchmouth surprises everyone with an unexpected proposal. The director quickly turns down her request to act in a scene in the movie since she is his girlfriend. Church Mouse refuses to continue carrying the equipment and expresses interest in being part of the risque film they are creating. Despite her pleas, the director insists that the movie plot cannot be changed in the middle. Yet, Church Mouse argues that no one is willing to pay for the movie solely because of the dull storyline. They are willing to pay to see the actors' bodies filled with hormones. The director asserts his movie will surpass porn, angering Church Mouse more as he blocks her wishes. The two are preceded by the producer in receiving medals. Speaking with the director outside, he points out that Church Mouse appears serious about wanting to film a scene in the movie, so why not give her an opportunity? Upset, the director explains that Church Mouse is not a girl like Blonde or Maxine. She is considered special for being kind, but the producer argues that none of them are nice. Upon entering the boarding house, the producer passes the camera to the director, who is still in disbelief. Maxine and Blonde finish are getting Church Mouse ready, who then takes off Playboy's waist towel to begin the next scene. Later that evening, when everyone is asleep, the director chooses to walk out on the crew due to his frustration with the script alterations and his girlfriend. The director angrily heads to the van to abandon them, but halts upon spotting Pearl blocking the road. He tries to assist Pearl in returning to their house, but she stays unresponsive until she hugs him. She lovingly touches his back and whispers in his ear, then attempts to give him a massage, but the director pushes her away. Suddenly, Pearl stabs his neck. Despite his efforts to stop the bleeding and seek help, Pearl obstructs him and repeatedly stabs him with the knife, splattering the headlights with blood. Following this, the eccentric elderly lady twirls in the wind, recalling her younger days and love for dancing. However, Church Mouse wakes up and notices the director is not in bed. She looks for him inside and outside the boarding house, but he's nowhere to be found. The producer startles Church Mouse by tapping her shoulder, but she ignores it and informs him about the director being absent. She is unable to conceal her guilt and anxiety because she fears the director may have abandoned her after she proposed a scene for the movie. The producer soothes her and accompanies her to find the director. While Church Mouse goes to the elderly's home, he checks the barn. He doesn't bother putting on pants and looks for the director Magolia's underwear. The producer steps on a nail, injuring his right foot, but he continues to watch shadows passing by and peers through the holes. Yet, his view is obstructed by someone. Suddenly, a solitary man stabs his brain through his eye. At that moment, Landler emerges searching for his amorous wife. He requests Church Mouse's assistance and instructs her to retrieve the other flashlight from the cellar. Out of worry, he pleads with Church Mouse, fearing his wife might injure herself in the darkness. The Church Mouse reluctantly complies and quickly locates the other flashlight. Conversely, Pearl stabs a deceased producer with a pitchfork while damaging the barn. Returning to Church Mouse, she rushes up the stairs upon locating the flashlight, only to realize that the landlord has secured the door from the exterior. She tries to get the landlord's help to free her, but when she gets no response, she goes back to the basement to find a way out. While there, she stumbles upon a naked, injured, decomposing man hanging from the ceiling. Playboy and Blonde wake up after hearing the door creaking in the meantime. Playboy investigates while Blonde goes back to sleep. He notices the landlord outside searching for his former wife. Playboy changes his outfit and heads outside to look around, unbeknownst to the landlord that there is someone in the boarding house. Pearl is quietly entering Maxine's room. The spooky and wild old lady takes off her clothes before joining Maxine on the bed to make contact. In the meantime, the landlord tells Playboy they need to separate in order to search. Subsequently, they go their separate ways before venturing into the woods to find Pearl. Conversely, Pearl touches Maxine's body with her blood-stained hands, leaving bloody marks on her skin. Returning to Playboy, he discovers a classic car submerged in the pond, leading him to question the elderly couple. Following that, he looks for the landlord, who unexpectedly shows up in front of him. The landlord glares at him with anger and informs him that the previous tenants of his house behaved similarly, walking around naked and tempting his elderly wife. Playboy attempts to downplay his words, but landlord gives him a stern look and then shoots his shotgun. In the meantime, Maxine wakes up and discovers Pearl in the bed with her. Blonde is awakened by Maxine's loud screams and quickly rushes to her aid. Pearl surprises her by being present and naked as she opens the door. Pearl casually walks away as Blonde rushes to Maxine, who accuses Pearl of touching her while she was sleeping. Church Mouse discovers a small axe in the basement and uses it to break down the door, making room to access the doorknob. Nevertheless, the landlord comes back and injures her hand with the butt of his shotgun. Attempting to call for help, she is faced with his weaponry and a threat to stay quiet in the cellar. In her state of helplessness, she can only cry as Landler switches on the TV to drown out her irritating sobs. Maxine heads to the bathroom while Blonde goes outside searching for Playboy. Pearl is eventually discovered by her standing naked at the edge of the dock. Worried about a potential slip and fall, Blonde rushes to her side. Before attempting to help Pearl back to her house, Blonde covers her with a blanket. Despite this, Pearl responds to her kindness with a slap and insults her. Blonde, feeling offended, attempts to leave but is blocked by Pearl. Following that, she shoves Blonde into the water. At that moment, the alligator seizes Blonde's attractive figure and the water quickly becomes red with her blood. Pearl witnesses Blonde being killed before the landlord arrives to bring her back home. After wiping away the bloody marks on her body, Maxine searches for her friends as the old couple enters the house. Upon entering Maxine's room, they hope to find her there, but she was absent. Sitting on the bed, they discuss their sex life and the lack of intimacy recently. Landler informs his wife that from the moment he met her, he recognized her as special, and even though they're aging, she remains as beautiful as ever. Pearl takes his hands and requests him to make her feel youthful by being intimate with her. She persuades him that his fragile heart is strong enough. While the elderly couple begins their stinky exercise routine, Maxine hides under the bed, eavesdropping. Quietly, she exits, enduring Pearl's urging for her husband to punish her dying, but still arouse Body more intensely. Upon leaving the room, Maxine immediately dashes out of the van upon stumbling upon the director's mutilated body. At that moment, she hears the screams of the church mouse calling for help. Upon entering the elderly couple's home, she discovers Church Mouse. While unlocking the door successfully, she tells Church Mouse to lower her voice. Maxine informs them about the necessity to locate the keys for the elderly couple's truck, yet Church Mouse ignores her and heads towards the door. After she leaves the house, the landlord takes action against her. As the elderly couple brings in Church Mouse's body, Maxine quickly hides. Nevertheless, her movement startles the landlord slightly, leading to a heart attack. While Pearl embraces her husband, Maxine emerges from her hiding place and aims a gun at Pearl. Pearl informs her that the truck keys are in the kitchen when she asks about them. Maxine grabs it before heading back to the front, where Pearl mocks her. Pearl informs Maxine that they are both fighting the same battles and Maxine's fate will be like hers. Maxine declines and asserts that she is a star, destined for worldwide recognition. Maxine states that she will not settle for a life she doesn't deserve. The fundamentalist church priest utters the same sentence. After that, she pulls the trigger, but no bullets are fired. Pearl seizes the shotgun and fires. Maxine avoids the bullet while Pearl is thrown outside due to the impact. Maxine leaves the house and looks at Pearl, who is calling for help after breaking her hip. She motions for Pearl to be silent, then proceeds to enter the truck and fatally crush Pearl's head, ending her life. In the morning, the television continues to show that the man is looking for his daughter, Maxine. The movie concludes with the police showing up at the gruesome crime scene, where one officer discovers the camera that was used to record the adult film. When the officer asks the sheriff what he thinks is on it, he replies that they have a party tonight with this tape.